Hey, how you doing today? My name is Relyea and thank you so much for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about the 7 different mistakes that Team Cherry needs to avoid when it comes to Hollow Knight Silksong. I don't know about you, but I am extremely excited for Hollow Knight Silksong. I want to say I can't wait. It's one of those things, it's going to be so good, but there's a couple of things that I'm a little bit worried about if they're not done properly. Knowing Team Cherry, they're going to do just fine. I'm not that worried about it, but these are the things that are on my mind. And so the very first one is I hope that the repair system is done correctly. And by that I mean there are tools in Hollow Knight Silksong. There are things you can throw, that you got weapons and different things, and they take a currency called bone shards to be able to repair, right? You'll be able to get these bone shards after fighting enemies. You'll find them kind of like Geo, essentially, right? I'm worried that if you have to be at a bench to repair your tools, it's going to be really easy to use up all your tools and then not have a bench for a very, very long time. So you're essentially just playing your game without your tools. You're wandering around, you're exploring, you're having a grand old time, but you're not able to use your tools. In Hollow Knight, the benches were super far apart, and a lot of times they were really, really far away from the bosses. I'm looking at you, B-boy. You know what I'm talking about. Well, that's going to be really, really problematic if, one, you need to use your tools just to get to the boss, or two, if you're dying to the boss over and over and over again, then you run out of bone shards and you don't have a way to repair your tools easily, or at all before you get back to the boss. You're already being punished by losing to the boss over and over and over again, and now you have to do it without tools. I don't know. At least with Hollow Knight, you always had you always had your soul filling up for nail attacks, so you kind of always had your attacks ready to go. I don't know how the tool system is going to work. Maybe it's just you don't really need, or you won't depend on your tools for bosses and stuff like that. I don't know. That's one of the things. That's why I'm worried. That's why it's number 1 on the list, is the tool repair system. The second mistake that Team Cherry needs to avoid with Silksong is overly complicated combat. So we already know that combat is going to be a focus of Silksong, but if it gets a little bit too crazy, if it gets too much into where you're required to parry all the time, if it's just like overly fast paced and it feels like you're button mashing, or it just feels like you can't do everything you need to do, I don't know. I feel like it could just become overly complicated very, very quickly. I don't think Team Cherry is going to mess this up, but I don't want to see a system like with Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I don't know how many of you guys played that one, but they had like this wheel system where you could basically use any ability at any time, but you had to like pause the game and like select the ability. It kind of like slowed down the experience and kind of took you out of it. I don't think that we're going to have that problem in Silksong because of the way the crest system works. You're not going to be able to have every single ability all at the same time, but I don't know. I'm just hoping that it's fun, it's fluid, and that it's just a fair combat system. That's what I'm looking for. Speaking of combat, I'm hoping that none of the tools are just completely overpowered. It's one of those things, it'd be very, very easy for just like one crest or one crest and couple of tools for those to combo together, and then it just makes it so that's like what you need to be using all the time for exploration as well as for dealing damage to enemies. Yeah. Hollow Knight made it feel like all of the charms were good early on. It seemed like you could do like almost any charm you got. It was adding something to your build, whether it was Shaman Stone, a Long Nail, Quick Slash. Any one of those charms were great, and almost any build was viable, at least until you got to like the super end game stuff with like the Pantheon of Hollow Nest, or even just the late game, the Pantheons in general. Then you would kind of fine tune the build a little bit more. But when it came to just exploring Hollow Nest, there were so many different charm combinations that you could use that were not only fun, but they were viable. I'm hoping that that same level of delicate balance will be available in Silksong. The number 4 mistake to avoid is a bad quest system. So all quests consist of like a couple of different loops, right? And so it's usually kill enemies, escort your friend, defend an area, gather X number of things, or deliver a delicate flower quest, right? So it seems like with Hollow Knight, we would kind of like stumble upon quests, again, delicate flower or the grubs or whatever, whereas Silksong, it's going to be a little bit more structured. And so I'm hoping that the loop that we complete when it comes to doing those quests are going to be fun. The fifth most important thing that Team Cherry needs to nail when it comes to not making mistakes with Silksong is not trying to force the lore. So I know that this one's probably a little bit more controversial. A lot of people want to get as much lore as possible. I'm not saying we shouldn't get lore. I'm not saying it shouldn't be abundant and available. What I'm saying is it shouldn't be forced. And by that I mean, I recently played Outriders, just a demo, nothing too crazy, right? And you got to play the game for 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or whatever, and then it would go through like a 2-minute cutscene. You'd literally play the game for another like 2 minutes or so, another 2-minute cutscene. It happened probably 5 or 6 times in a row. It was just like, I just want to play the game. Like, I get that you're trying to get me to be invested in this world that you've built, but you're pushing me away. I just want to play a game. I do want to get that lore, but can I also play the game? So I don't know. That's what I don't want to happen. I don't want to go through a giant text wall of stuff when it comes to Hollow Knight Silksong. If I want to read a text wall of lore, I should hopefully be able to find something. But I don't want them to force me to go through that. I don't want it. I think Hollow Knight did a very, very good job of making it so that way the lore was scattered about, and if you wanted to go read lore tablets, where it was a couple lines of text or whatever, you could go read through it. It was fine. It was good. It was actually, it was really good. And then you have Mossbag go through and digest all of it, or Rusty, you know? They did a good job of it. And that brings us to today's sponsors. Just kidding. We don't actually have real sponsors, but we've actually been working on some Hollow Knight fan art, limited edition stuff. We talked with Team Cherry, and we are allowed to sell small batches of original creation fan art. I'll throw a link in the description below. We have something new usually every month or so, so check that out. Coming in at number 6 for mistakes that need to be avoided is having a map that is too big. And again, this one might be controversial. I just don't want a map that is so big. I don't want the world to be a mile wide and an inch deep. And the first thing that comes to mind is, was that No Man's Sky? No Man's Sky was just an insanely massive game with not a whole lot to do. I don't think that Team Cherry is actually going to make this mistake, but it would be a mistake that could be made by a lesser developer than Team Cherry. I have a feeling that they're going to pass all of these with flying colors. So the things that they need to watch out is just not having enough to do, or just having areas that are so spread out, with the camera being more zoomed out, Hornet being bigger, her being faster, and just like the areas being bigger. I hope that the areas aren't bigger just for the sake of them being bigger, and that I'm sure they won't feel empty, because there'll just be a lot going on, either with the background or with enemies. I don't know. I think it'd be really easy to just have large areas with not a whole lot going on, potentially. That, or I hope that the fast travel system isn't too far spread out. It was almost just slightly too far spread out in Hollow Knight. That was probably one criticism, that I wish that you could get to certain areas faster in Hollow Knight, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes with Silksong. And last but not least, the biggest mistake that Team Cherry needs to avoid with Silksong: loot boxes. Are they actually going to do loot boxes? No. Am I worried that they're actually going to do that? I don't think so. But let me know down in the comments below, what do you think that Team Cherry needs to avoid to make sure that Hollow Knight Silksong is just an amazing experience? What do you think that could potentially go wrong based on the information that we have so far? I'd love to hear what you think down below. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Be sure to subscribe and tune in every Tuesday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time where I go live. Thank you very much for coming by. Again, my name's Relyea, and I'll talk to you again more real soon. Thanks. Bye.